talking about the State of the Union. Still ahead in this hour, Bill Kristol will join us. Next hour, we'll have Charles Hurt, Grover Norquist, Rick Santorum will be here, and Doug Schoen, Herman Cain. So an all-star lineup here on the Steve Malzberg Show. But right now, we're joined by Democratic strategist Christopher Hahn. Hey, Christopher.
Hey, great to be here.
Great to talk to you. All right, so your impressions of Obama's State of the Union.
I think it was masterful. I think he had a very progressive message, but he used the right rhetoric, which I think is very good. I mean, look, the man is always good in a big speech. I think he made probably the strongest statement on climate change ever made by a president of the United States while in office. I was very impressed by that. I thought it was touching when he pointed out the backgrounds of the Speaker of the House and some other people in the chamber, including himself. And I was impressed. Look, I think that these State of the Union speeches are not what they used to be. You and I talked a couple weeks ago about Johnson's 64 State of the Union, which he laid out 5 major initiatives, and all 5 of them were passed within 6 months. I don't think that we're going to see a lot of these initiatives passed through the House, although they should get going on the minimum wage, and they should get going on a few of the other things the president pointed out.
All right, we're also joined by Republican strategist Ron Christie. Ron, welcome. We appreciate you coming on. So your response to the State of the Union, Christopher Hahn here said he thought it was masterful.
Well, it was masterful for how inept it was. Here we are, a year of the administration. The president has nothing really new to talk about. He trotted out many of the same initiatives that didn't get anywhere in the Congress from the last State of the Union a year ago. And frankly, I thought the president had nothing new to say. Only 40 minutes into the speech did he give a glancing reference to his signature legislative achievement being the Affordable Care Act, and then he went on to something else. So if this is the State of the Union where we have 90 million people less in the workforce than when he started his administration, where you have 1 out of 5 children who are in poverty right now, where you have a very difficult prospect for the economy turning around, then if this is a masterful State of the Union address, I'd hate to see what a bad one looks like.
Well, I thought he accentuated the positive. He talked about how the stock market's never been higher. He talked about how the economy has added jobs since he's taken office. I thought it was great, and I thought his defense of the Affordable Care Act was very good, and it's about time he stood up for it because it is a good achievement. And I think, look, if the Republicans want to come to the table and come up with some ideas, and Harry Reid indicated today that he will accept some ideas to change the Affordable Care Act as votes on the floor of the Senate, I think they should step up and put those ideas in a bill form that could be scored and that we could talk about in real senses. Look, I'm not going to say that bill's perfect, Ron. You and I have talked about this many, many times. I think it could be approved. Look, I didn't prove it by making a single payer, but I think that I think we're going to see some action out of this. But like you're right, a lot of the ideas were retreads. Congress has an act on them, and the president has indicated that he's going to take executive action if he has to.
But Ron, one thing that Christopher had trumpeted at the top was the most definitive statement or the strongest statement yet by a president on climate change. Of course, in the face of evidence, accepted evidence, that the temperature in the Earth hasn't warmed in the last 20 years. But you know what? When you look at the polls, I think climate change is even below immigration reform and what people care about. And that and minimum wage, which people don't care about because there's so few people that are involved in it. I mean, is that what our country's come to? That's the vision for America, is raising the minimum wage, climate change, and whatever else?
I certainly hope not. If you look at the minimum wage, you're talking about 2.4 million Americans who are at the minimum wage or beneath, that is, getting a training wage. But if you take 50% of those who are on the minimum wage are between the ages of 16 and 24. So for the president to suggest that we're going to have minimum wage for the primary household earner who isn't on minimum wage, I think it's disingenuous, who isn't on minimum wage, I think it's disingenuous, number one. Number two, you look at global climate change. The things that people care the most about, Steve, are their economic prospects and their ability to get and keep a job. And I think this president, once again, is out of touch with the mainstream of America. He needs to focus on the economy rather than focusing on the Democratic pet wish list.
Well, Steve, you talked about the polls. I want to point out a poll that I saw over the summer. It was the North Pole, and it had open water in it. So I think that we can all agree that the world, that there's been a change in the climate in this world that needs to be addressed. And I think science is conclusive on this.
No, well, you're wrong because there are scientists. No, they don't agree. You're absolutely wrong. That's absolutely not true.
Steve, I'm going to get in your boat. I know you've got a great
like
boat.
The boat that got stuck in the Arctic for weeks?
We're going to get in your boat in August. You, Ron, and I. We're going to get a case of beer. We're going to fly up to the North Pole, and then we're going to see if there's an open water there.
Hey, Christopher, let me ask you a question. He talked about equal work for equal pay for women, which is another old tired apples to oranges. But having said that, there's this from 2012 annual report to Congress on the White House. 2012 annual report to Congress on the White House staff shows that the women in the White House made 13% less than their counterpart. Now, I wish Boehner and the rest of them were saying what I'm saying, but you talk about hypocrisy 101.
Well, if that's true, I want those women to get a raise. I am a father of daughters. I do believe that there's inequality in the workplace for women. I'm married to a very strong woman. And I think that, look, I think that we need to make sure, look, anybody who has a daughter wants to see that they have a fair shake in the world, the same as any man does. And we have to acknowledge that in the history of this country, women have been given less money for the same work. It's because of a culture that the men were the breadwinners. That's not the case anymore.
And that's not the case anymore in many levels. Ron, I believe there are very many mitigating factors that enter into that quote-unquote statistic of what women make compared to men.
There are, and I do agree with Christopher on this one. I mean, he and I are old pals, and we often agree more than we disagree. But, for the President of the United States to come out and trot out the tired line that women are paid a lot less than men, and he can't even take care of that in his own White House and his own administration, not only shows the hypocrisy of his words, but it shows that he, as usual, doesn't know the facts behind his words. And really, I think that's the tone for me beyond the State of the Union as we look forward of we didn't get into the real inequality in this country, which is the fact that if you don't have a strong education, you're not going to get ahead.
Right about that.
All right, let Chris make a final word, 10 seconds.
Look, Ron, you're right about that. Education, and we got to define. I think we need to redefine as a nation. We all need to come together, redefine what education is, because maybe a 4-year college education isn't what it is anymore. The president alluded to that briefly in his State of the Union. And I think that there needs to be a good national conversation, an adult conversation about what education is and how we're going to pay for it.
All right, Christopher Hahn and Ron Christie. Ron, you'll be back with us next hour. Appreciate it. Thank you guys very much. When we come back, Bill Kristol, the founder and editor of the Weekly Standard, on the Steve Malzberg Show.
Where can you find the Steve Malzberg Show? The Steve